Happy Victory Monday to all you Kansas City Chiefs fans and Swifties out there. And I'm sorry for the Niner fans and pretty much the rest of America uh, with, with having to see the Niners lose on Super Bowl Sunday yesterday. Super Bowl 58 capped off the season, and it was quite a big one. I really enjoyed this season. However, the ending really not up to what I wanted. Obviously, I picked Ravens Lions. I think a lot of people wanted Ravens Lions, but we're gonna dive into this game today. Uh, it was a it was an okay game. Was it a great ending? Yes, the ending to this game, fourth quarter overtime, was phenomenal, but the rest of the game was not good. And there's a lot of things that I can take away from this game, and especially from the Niners standpoint. I mean, you take away a lot of things from the team that lost. So we're gonna get into that real quick. First off, I just want to put out here now, if you aren't following any of my social medias, make sure you please do so. And then also make sure you're subscribing. If you're not subscribed, it's free. You can always unsubscribe later. If you enjoy my content, just give me a like, drop me a subscription, follow me on social medias. I would appreciate it. Big win for the city of Kansas City and the Kansas City Chiefs. 25-22 overtime win. And we'll get into the overtime part about this game a little bit later, but what a game for Kansas City. Great ending, not a great game, but I loved watching it. We had a great time yesterday as like a house and a collective going watching the Super Bowl together. But let's dive into what really needs to be spoken about when it comes to the Chiefs is the greatness of Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes, now 28 years old, three-time Super Bowl winner, three-time Super Bowl MVP, two-time MVP. If you look at all of his stats compared to Tom Brady's at this like this time of his career, in 96 games played, Mahomes has him beat in every category. Every category. And as much as I don't want to really start saying Mahomes is the GOAT, like he's gonna be the next GOAT, because Brady just retired, and we're already finally like saying, oh, he's no longer this big thing anymore. It's all Mahomes now. Tom Brady, undeniably greatest quarterback of all time, greatest player of all time, but you can't not bring up the discussion of, is Mahomes gonna be the GOAT? Is he gonna surpass Tom Brady? There's always gonna be something like that. When Michael Jordan won his six in the NBA, and everybody was like, undisputed GOAT, no one's ever going to be able to do what he was doing. And then you have a guy like Kobe, who put up 5 championships. And then you have LeBron, who, the Kobe-Bron debate just never stops. And that's what is going to happen now with Brady and Mahomes. I mean, Mahomes has 3 championships in 6 years. Brady had 3 in 5. So you can look at those and be like, well, this guy had it in one less time. Well, this guy has better stats. It's going to be the big debate now in the NFL. It's been the big debate now. But now, since he has 3, and everybody's like, well, he's never going to catch Tom Brady's 7, but he has 3 in 6 years, it's starting to look like, okay, this guy might have a chance. I was a big Tom Brady guy. I was a big Tom Brady liker fan until he went to the Bucks, because I'm a Saints fan. That made me a little upset. Didn't really like him when he was on the Bucks, because he kind of just was a little bit of a baby to the Saints players, especially, and to our coaches. He was a little rude, so I didn't really like him when he was in Tampa. With Mahomes, I can't say I'm the fan of Mahomes. I can't say I'm a hater of Mahomes either, because I'm here to appreciate his greatness. I mean, you can't deny the fact that Mahomes is going to end up being a great. He's already a top 5 quarterback of all time, in my opinion, with the resume he has built in such a little time. Already having more touchdowns, more passing yards in a career, or in such a short span, or like having more Super Bowls, obviously, than a lot of guys. Like, for instance, a tweet resurfaced of Troy Aikman saying stop comparing Mahomes being this next great thing until he has even a third of my Super Bowl rings. He said that in 2019. Wouldn't you know? It's 2023, 2024, actually. And Mahomes has the same amount of rings as Troy Aikman. So you can't deny his greatness. That's why I'm not going to hate him, because I can't deny his greatness. I did the same thing with Tom Brady. But as I said, do I think Mahomes is going to be the GOAT when it's all said and done? If he stays on this track, yes, he will be. If he stays on this pace of 3 championships in 6 years, almost 30K yards in 6 years, like all of this, if he keeps that up, he'll be the GOAT. Now, it's hard to do that over a span of 22 seasons like Tom Brady did. But Mahomes lost a lot of his weapons this year, and he still is looking good. He still looks like Patrick Mahomes. So you can't count him out anytime. Which is also another thing that I'm going to talk about is the Niners almost like counted Mahomes out. You didn't score any points for like a ton of time, and you didn't score until later in the second quarter. And the second half, the Niners didn't really make too many adjustments, in my opinion. And that's more of a Steve Wilkes problem. I'll talk about that when we get to our Niners stuff. But they didn't really make any adjustments. In the first half, they did a really good job at containing Patrick Mahomes. They had Nick Bosa, Chase Young on those wide 9 techniques. And then towards the second half, you started seeing not as often the wide 9 technique from those defensive ends. And that's such a big question for why you're going to do this. Because the way you beat Mahomes, you see teams like what the Raiders did on Christmas, which is the last team to beat Mahomes in this season. The Raiders always had a guy coming off that wide technique, that wide 9. And that's why they were able to contain Mahomes, because Mahomes couldn't extend plays by getting out of the pocket. That's how you beat the Chiefs, is by limiting his movement and keeping him in the pocket. But that's not what the Niners did in the second half. Moving on to the Chiefs defense, I want to talk about how phenomenally they played, especially pressuring Brock Purdy. I've always said it. Brock Purdy, when he is pressured, is one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. He's not really able to make those high pressure throws. I've watched a lot of his film, and a lot of the times he's under pressure is when he tends to throw his interceptions, throw his bad things, because he's trying to make that play happen instead of trying to take the safe way out of the pressure. Obviously, it's a bunch of pressure, so your mind's racing, and you're like, oh, what am I going to do here? Do I take the sack? Do I throw it away? Do I try and hit this guy? But he's got a very poor passer rating when pressured, and he tends to lose games when he's pressured. And that's what the Chiefs really focused in on, because they knew their defensive backcourt was good enough to stay with the receivers from the 49ers, and then their linebackers were good enough to stay with George Kittle if they had to line up on him. That if they get pressure, they're going to get into Brock Purdy's head, and they're going to make sure that he can't get the ball out. However, Brock Purdy played a decent game. Not a great game, not really a good game. It was a very serviceable game for a guy like Brock Purdy to go out there and play the way he did. He was one of the little bright spots on that Niners team, even though they scored 22 points. And now we got to go and talk about the Chiefs dynasty. It's been 3 rings in 5 years, so obviously it's now officially a dynasty. And they were counted out a ton this year. I counted them out twice, and they proved me wrong 2 times. Do you think they make it back next year? I mean, it's way too early to talk. It's going to be a whole other year till the next Super Bowl. But do you think they make it back next year and make it 4-6? Is this going to be the first three-peat in a long, long time? Because I don't even remember. I can't even think of a three-peat right now. And I think there's a lot of really good teams in the NFL right now, and obviously the Chiefs are one of them. It's hard to tell already. But you can't discredit this dynasty that has been building since 2019-2020 season, the NFL 100 season. And, I mean, you got to give the Chiefs their props. And Andy Reid coached himself a great game. The defensive coordinator had himself into a great game. I can't think of his name. Coach Spags, I believe. He had a great game. He was just outskilling Shanahan in every way possible, out scheming him, just out coaching him. And the second half, I think, was a phenomenal showing of what this Chiefs team is, and that it's still really starting to prove that it was smart for them to trade Tyreek Hill and put a lot of the eggs from their offensive basket and put them into the defensive basket and kind of focus in on making a big defense to be on the other side of Mahomes. Because you look at the great dynasties and like the Patriots, for instance, the Patriots. You look at the Patriots and you say, what do all those teams have in common? They had a generational quarterback who had himself his weapons, maybe not like the biggest names. Obviously, Travis Kelce's a big name for Mahomes, but not the biggest names. And then you get him a great defense. You get him a great defense, and that defense can do their job because you know he's going to do his job. And you look at the Super Bowls that Brady won. You'd say his number one guy, Deion Branch, he won a Super Bowl MVP. Julian Edelman, Rob Gronkowski, those type of guys were like the main guys on the winning teams. Obviously, Brady played with Randy Moss. And then you look at Mahomes. He had Tyreek Hill in the first one he won. He had Travis Kelce, and then since then it's really just been Travis Kelce. The wide receiver one last year was Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and you had Kadarius Toney last year, who didn't play this year. And then your wide receiver one this year is Rashee Rice, a rookie. So you build that defense up to be able to stop teams. You're going to be good in the long run, and that's what the Chiefs decided was right. And it was really kind of a win-win for Tyreek and the Kansas City organization. Obviously, Tyreek would want those 2 rings, but gets to be in Miami now. And the Chiefs get to start their dynasty. Now, enough about the Chiefs. It's time to talk about what mostly people are going to be talking about is the 49ers and what went wrong. Because I think they played a pretty good game defensively for 99% of the game. The offense was all right. I mean, had a little bit of miscues, and that turned out to eventually be a big problem for them. And then they just didn't win the special teams battle. But I will say, Chris Conley, fantastic game from the wide receiver special teamer for the 49ers, number 84. Had himself an absolute game playing as a gunner on punt. And Wishnowsky and Tommy Townsend, by the way, great punts. But Wishnowsky getting the ball down there and then Conley getting down there and just hitting that guy, making sure he can't get anything on these kick returns. Got a hats off to him. So we'll talk about the first problem was obviously that first drive were CMC fumbles. That's always a big problem. You can't really do anything if you fumble. You're going to turn the ball over. That you can put a lot of blame on that. I'm not going to. It was the very beginning of the game. Pacheco had a fumble as well for the Chiefs. Both teams had the same amount of turnovers. And the bigger turnover to talk about is the punt return. And it hits off your teammate's heel, which is very, very one in like 10,000% chance of that happening. Very unlikely to happen. But if you're Ray McCloud in that situation, you don't try and scoop it up and be the hero. You drop on that. You drop on it. You get on the football and you just get down. Make sure that nobody can get that ball, and you cover it up. And that's not what he did. He tried to pick it up and become the hero of the Super Bowl and try and make something out of nothing. And the Chiefs got to recover it. And that was really the big turning point of the game because the Chiefs were really struggling until that happened. And that's when the momentum all went to Kansas City. But as Ray McCloud, probably takes a lot of responsibility for that. I haven't seen anything if he has or not, like said anything about it. You just got to, you got to drop on that and make sure you recover that football. And then you got the extra point that was blocked. Obviously, that's just a miscue everywhere. You got to block right better. Sometimes it's kind of just luck. And I bet you Jake Moody's probably really on himself right now because it would have that field goal by Harrison Butker to send them to overtime wouldn't have been a thing. They would have had to score there, and that just changes the game completely if you make that extra point, because then it's 20-16 when Mahomes is going down the field trying to win the game. Instead, it's 19-16, and okay, if we don't get a touchdown, we can go to overtime. We can win this game, which they did. And speaking of overtime, the overtime rules, that has been coming out. That has been going crazy everywhere. The Niners supposedly did not know the rules, and I don't think it's the rule of both teams get a possession, and that's why they took the ball. I'm completely okay with that because he trusts his offense. He trusts himself to go out there and score a touchdown and put points on the board, which they did put points on the board, but that's not obviously what they wanted. I'm talking about at the end of overtime, there was 9 seconds left. I was doing it. Everybody was doing it. It was just like, why are the Chiefs running the clock out here? They're going to lose the game. Why are they going to let it happen? It's because Andy Reid knew what everybody else didn't, that the rule states both teams get a possession. If one team scores a field goal, touchdown, and the next team gets their possession, but their possession runs past the triple zeros, goes past that period, that doesn't mean their possession's over. Their possession's still going. So they're not given the rightful chance to win the game, technically. So then it would just go to second overtime. And then that's why they did that. And the Niners, obviously, they didn't know that, so they weren't able to change the way they played. They thought, okay, all we got to do is just wait until that clock gets to zeros, and the Super Bowl is ours. So that's why they played the way they did towards that later stretch. However, they were playing like that all game. They were playing the same defense all game. And that's my big problem with this Niners team in the second half is Steve Wilks. Remember when he was the interim head coach for the Carolina Panthers, and everybody said he needs to be hired, and then Frank Reich got hired, and everybody said, why didn't they hire Steve Wilks as head coach? Steve Wilks just play called himself out of a possible future head coaching job, and he's done that all season. Steve Wilks is not a good defensive coordinator. He is not somebody you want calling your schemes because he doesn't know how to change his schemes. The Niners, they've been very successful with the same 4-down, 3-linebacker scheme. Obviously, you go through the injury of Dre Greenlaw. That means you might want to change the scheme up a little bit sometimes because you don't have the reliability of Dre Greenlaw on the field with you with Fred Warner, so you can have Fred Warner do his thing and Greenlaw do his thing. You don't have that, You don't have Dre Greenlaw, and it sucked that he got hurt so quick because he's a phenomenal player. I love him as a player. I love watching him play, and it's a freak accident what happens, just tearing his Achilles, and it sucked to watch. But you don't have him. You can't have a backup come in and do what Dre Greenlaw does. And that's what the Chiefs did in the second half, is they took advantage of that. They went after the backup linebackers, and they went after those areas, especially with towards the end of the game, the Travis Kelce catch that got down to about the near the 10-yard line. That was on a crosser route because that was to a backup linebackers area. And you could tell, they knew that's what they needed to do to win this game. And that's what helped them win this game. That's what helped them come back and win that game, was taking advantage of the backups. So I just don't understand, if you're Steve Wilks, maybe move yourself more into a 4-2-5. Maybe move yourself more into a 4-6 or something like that. I get it. Maybe not a 4-6. They didn't really run the ball that well. Pacheco didn't really do much. But move yourself into a dime package every once in a while. Just do something to be able to stop the pass. And then, obviously, as I said earlier, keep your wide 9 techniques. Because Nick Bosa and Chase Young on wide 9s are going to demolish those Chiefs linemen, the offensive tackles. They aren't good enough to be able to stop Nick Bosa and Chase Young on a wide 9. Chase Young has not done anything for the 49ers until the Super Bowl, when he actually did good, and he did it off the wide 9s. So I just don't understand, when you're Steve Wilks, why you do that at all. As for the offensive side of the ball, McCaffrey played his heart out. Jawan Jennings played his heart out with the passing touchdown and receiving touchdown. Purdy, you could tell, was doing all he could in his power, and it's just not what I was expecting from this 49ers offense, With the weapons that they have, there is no excuse that the Niners shouldn't be winning multiple Super Bowls. And that's when I think it comes down to coaching. And Kyle Shanahan, as I said, will never win a Super Bowl in San Francisco if he doesn't change his play calling in the Super Bowl. The 25-point lead when he was the Falcons OC against the Patriots was inexcusable. He could have kneeled every play, and they would have won that Super Bowl. Except he forgot how to run the football. He just stopped running the football. In Super Bowl 54, what did he do? He stopped running the football in the second half. In this Super Bowl, what did he do? He stopped running the football again. In the third quarter, Christian McCaffrey was non-existent when it came to a running game because they stopped running the football. You have a lead, run the football. And that's where your big success comes from. You running the football, and then Brock Purdy can capitalize on a play-action pass. You have the best running back in the NFL. You have Christian McCaffrey, who, in my opinion, should have won the regular season MVP award. He was the most valuable player in the NFL. So why are you taking the ball away from his hands and giving it to Patrick Mahomes more? It doesn't make sense to me that they would do that with CMC on the roster. And I think that's the biggest thing they need to address is Kyle Shanahan. Is he really going to be the guy to bring you a Super Bowl? Yes, he's made 2 of them in 5 years with you guys, 6 years with you guys, whatever. But he hasn't won them. He's notoriously known for blowing leads in the Super Bowl now because he's 0-3 in the Super Bowl when he's been a part of a team in the Super Bowl. Finally, going off with it, I want to say thank you guys for the support during this 2023-2024 NFL season. It was a fun ride this year. I know I took a big gap from the beginning of the season to the mid-season. Next year will be a big one with Super Bowl 59 coming into New Orleans, the home of my favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. And obviously I'm hoping that the Saints play in Super Bowl 59. Not going to happen most likely. But I'll leave you off with this. My way, way, way too early Super Bowl 59 prediction. My AFC champion is going to be the Cincinnati Bengals. And I just believe that a fully healthy Bengals roster that plays to the best of their ability all year is going to get back to the Super Bowl. And who are they going to play? Well, why not spice it up and say another team that's never won a franchise Super Bowl? The Detroit Lions. So my way, way too early 2025 Super Bowl 59 matchup, Cincinnati versus Detroit. Detroit Lions, Cincinnati Bengals. There you have it. And with that, that's going to be it from me. And as I said earlier, make sure you like, subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace out.